welcome to Got Therapy. I'm Michael Baltimore. I'm here with Dr. Dan Rose, the director of the Counseling Center here at Columbus State University here in Columbus, Georgia. Dan comes in and we talk about all kinds of topics. Just the sky's the limit on some of these things, and he is very versatile in that area. And so this is kind of an interesting topic we're going to start out with today, Dan. And you brought this up. You actually did a presentation on this, I believe.
Did a talk on
something called bad art.
Bad art.
Bad art. Well, can you help us kind of define that a little bit? Because bad art, we're always making these judgments about what we see, what we like, we don't like. You know, we go to movies, we go, that was a good movie. Yes, that was a good movie, but nobody ever goes into detail why sometimes. But we all have these choices, and we make those kind of decisions, good or bad. And so you're bringing up this topic of bad art, meaning that some art is just bad for us, maybe has some sort of impact beyond whether we just like or dislike it. It may have more depth to that idea of how it affects us in our lives. So give us a little overview of this bad art notion, and how did you come to do a presentation on it too? I'm really interested in that part.
Actually, I thought it was about people named art, and
oh, is that you?
Yeah,
so you brought the wrong notes.
Like Garfunkel, and that's the only art I know. Art Spiegelman, and
no, you evidently didn't get the memo for today's show, but
okay, yeah.
We'll have Louisa send that back to you. But no, it's bad art.
Bad art.
What?
Well,
what is this?
I think the first thing we got to do is we got to be able to talk about. We got to link art with psychology, because I'm not an artist.
Okay, right.
And some people would say I'm not really a psychologist either. But you know
right.
what?
There's a lot of things they've said about you, and I'll try not to put those on camera here, but for the most part.
Don't read what you in the bathroom stall, especially if it's an iambic pentameter.
Okay,
it's
here we
really,
go. All right.
Anything.
But so you're not an artist.
So I'm not.
But you play one now on TV,
I play one.
evidently, at this point. So.
From a psychological perspective.
Okay.
The very act of experiencing art. Think about what happens when you are experiencing a piece of art. Music, a poem, a painting, whatever the case may be.
Right.
Something is occurring psychologically.
Sure.
The aesthetic experience engenders some cognitive and affective, there's a cognitive affective event that occurs in the process of experiencing a piece of art, no?
Right. Yeah, that is true. It absolutely is true.
And from an evolutionary biological perspective, we can say that art, at its best, finds some ways to exploit the hard wiring, the adaptive mechanisms that we've acquired to be successful as an individual and as a species, and art somehow exploits those things in a maximal way, right?
I think so. Yeah, it certainly, the artists may have different, the intent may be different, but they're certainly exposing us to various ways to experience life and look at the world around us in different ways.
Well, one of the greatest artists in the world, Gene Simmons from Kiss. He says that
okay, there you go.
That no one ever picked up a guitar unless they weren't thinking about this aiding them in being able to have sex. So someone picks up a guitar so that someone at some point will sleep with them. And he says that the basis for all art, and there is a school of thought that says this, we make art sort of like notice how the peacock, by the way, it's the peahen is the female,
right,
and the male is the peacock. So think about the peacock unfurls its feathers and entices the peahen. So from that perspective, all art is a way to get the peahen. We all want a peahen.
All right. All right. All right, I'm going with you on that basic assumption right now.
Or a peacock. I'm not saying
particularly you use the guitar and the performance and music
Gene
and that kind of thing. Yeah, that's right. Gene Simmons, yes. And so therefore, this may be a way to resolve some of our needs more than just expression of what it's like to see something from a person's their own experience and they're sharing with others. So.
At the base level, it acts as an enhancement. The artist is enhancing themselves in some way and making themselves more attractive. And however, I think that's way too,
Yeah, that's kind of simplified.
That's what
but yeah.
I think that art also carries with it a cognitive and affective experience that we grow from. Art prepares us for the world in a way and allows us to experience the world in a titrated way that we're the better for. So if I were to talk about good art versus bad art,
Right.
so if this is about bad art,
Right.
maybe good art, art with a capital A, has a capacity to make us experience things. It exploits those inborn, those hardwired evolutionary mechanisms in such a way that makes us feel certain things. We were also somehow altered or changed. I mean, think about when you encounter a really good piece of art, a good song. It does things to you, man, right?
Right, sure.
I mean, you can literally, in some ways, maybe you are somehow rewired. Your cognitive, biochemical balance is somehow affected. And maybe with really good art, it's affected in a positive way forever.
Might very well be. I mean, we all know songs that put us in a good mood or helps us recall experiences in our lives, and we tend to have a music collection. And what's in your music collection, for example, and those kind of things. And I want to ask you about that. We'll get to that on another show.
Yeah.
But the idea of yes, it does have an impact on us, and it may be at a level that continues over time.
Well, you say because there is something as a psychologist and a clinical psychologist. There is an art to psychotherapy.
Right.
So in the act of therapy, you are engendering an aesthetic event on some level. And we talk in my end of the biz, we talk about the music of the voice, how to hold someone with the nonverbals. You generate in that dialectic between two subjectivities, you generate an aesthetic event. There is a mutual meeting of the minds, and the music of the voice, the choice of words. There is a music and a poetry. There are things that happen.
Absolutely.
So in some ways, art and psychotherapy both exploit some of those same sort of things. They exploit the attachment system. They exploit some basic biological drives, that sort of stuff.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, in the psychotherapy model, we're setting goals for the person to work through various issues, and so there is a structure there with the goals that we're trying to do, and these are what you're talking about maybe is the tools of how we do that with the voice and that kind of. Now, how about art in that same way? Are there goals? Or is this art trying to get us to kind of experience something in a different way?
Well, Freud, who is not Gene Simmons, so they're both Jewish.
I'm glad you put those two references together there. But yes,
both of them also wore pancake batter on their face.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen. I think Freud played drums for kids.
But you know, we're going to have some show notes on some of these comments occasionally along the way. But back to the idea.
Freud says that he has this famous book called Civilization and Its Discontent.
Okay.
And one of the lines, I think I've said it on this show before, that Freud says, famous saying, that the first person to throw an insult instead of a spear invented civilization.
Okay.
So Freud says, man, you know what? All of us have these drives that the difference between us and a honey badger is much, much less than you think. So to be able to harness our honey badgerness, and by the way, the honey badger is one heck of an animal. Have you guys ever seen that?
Yeah, we have a pet here. That's our pet
in
the studio.
Those honey badgers are just, I mean, they're off the chain. I'd like to get one and shave it. I don't know why I said that, but something about a shaved honey badger.
Oh, you're expressing something here. Maybe maybe this is artistic conversation in some way. Right? Maybe.
But
all right.
So civilization is in place to be able to get us to hang out together, to work collectively toward collective ends. But there's still lots of stuff, according to Freud, that we have to be able to find a way to channel, sublimate, sex, aggression. So, for instance, you cannot have indiscriminate intercourse with every single person that you meet, but you can go to the Hot Topic in the mall. You see?
Right.
You can't have this, but you can't have this. And you may say to yourself, how does indiscriminate sexual activity, how does that connect with the Hot Topic? Is the Hot Topic still there? I used to buy my wallets there.
I don't know. We have to
get a really good leather wallet at the Hot Topic.
Another idea for the show notes again.
But so there's these 2 points. So how do you get from there to there? Freud says, well, that's because to sublimate, there are, again, that exploitation of the biological drives and needs for us to be good citizens.
Right.
So civilization generates discontent, and things like art assuage that discontent. So I would say,
Yes.
this is me,
Yeah.
and Karl Marx says, that religion, he said, was the opiate of the masses. Well,
Right. Remember that.
if you combine the two, art can be an opiate. It can be a way to get us to be able to be good citizens. It can, at its best, polish us as a cog in the machine, but then put us back in the machine. What if really good art is art that allows us to possibly transform ourselves and the machine? What if it heralds a new truth event? What if artists like Pollock, and if you can think of people in the vanguard of the visual arts, what if they begin to articulate something? It begin to arrive when they begin to make those works of art. And they were able to put it into some sort of plastic form. And they began the speech. They gave us something to digest that actually transformed the machine. So good art could be something that transforms you and possibly the machine.
The larger
How's that
society.
sound?
Yeah. Oh, I like that idea.
Yeah. And I'm hoping as I say that like Gene Simmons, someone at some point will want to have intercourse with me.
Yeah, I think
That's really how-
if we kind of move this conversation to that level, I think that's what we're
good.
trying to accomplish here
But,
today.
but see, so we have that. So
But
that's
it does
good art.
transform us in some ways, and it may be even more than just us. It may be a larger impact on society and the culture.
It can set ripples, but it's enough, I think, for you to be changed in some ways. Now, I'm not to say that there can't be art that is, there's a saying in the biz that the excellent is the enemy of the good. So if you hold up only the most excellent examples of art and music and that sort of stuff, and then you then say everything else is crap, well, that's not good.
Right.
So, for instance, if you love Dancing Queen by ABBA, I'm kind of dating myself here.
Right.
Actually,
I don't know who you're talking
I would
about.
never go out with myself. I have better taste than that. I wouldn't date myself. But
I totally understand. Yes.
I would never date
ABBA,
if you
Dancing Queen.
If you like Dancing Queen,
Yes.
and that may make you feel good. It may be what we call, in my end, a regression in the service of ego. It makes you remind you of earlier times, high school, toddlerhood, whatever the case may be.
In the service of the ego.
Right,
Nice
which means,
phrase,
it is regressive in a good way. It allows you to, it's like comfort food. It's
right.
good.
Right. Kind of
After a
going back
bad,
to
a day
better
of
time,
yeah,
etc.
after a day of paper cuts and all that sort of stuff, you come home and you put in some ABBA, you feel good. That's good. That's art. That's still good.
Right.
But really good art, though, because right now we sort of got, if you can imagine, we have sort of a spectrum. We have art, which is sort of like Dancing Queen by ABBA, or contemporary would be like maybe some Bieb, Justin Bieber. You
Justin
like the Bieb?
Bieber, yeah.
You get the Bieber fever. You go home, you crank up some Bieb, you listen to this, there's that.
Right.
You have really, really good art, which can be transformative. It can be something, and there are, I give Pollock as an example, Beethoven. But there's also, you mentioned the Tupac there a while ago.
Yeah.
We were having a conversation about
Right.
it. You should hear this guy rap.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Yeah.
Somebody wants
Old
to-
school rap, by the way.
Somebody throws some
New school.
beats down. This guy will.
Not quite up to 50, but or 50. But,
50. But so there are all sorts of ways in which that high and low culture
Right.
can generate this sort of stuff. But what about? So we got really good art. We got art. What about bad art? That's on this end. Okay,
Right.
so bad art.
Yeah, what's the impact of that? What does it do? I mean, we kind of understand what this good art is doing
Yeah.
for us. Helps us in, like you said, regression and so forth, the ego and the comfort of that. But yeah, what is this impact of bad art?
Let's define, because first off, because I was asking some people in the studio, and then
Daniel.
can't see him, but he's right there. There's a
Yeah,
guy
Daniel's
right there.
down there. He's in
Daniel
the
right there,
dark.
yeah. If you can't, I don't think he's ever been on camera. Just
Yeah, actually, he has several shows.
yes,
Yeah, you
yes.
got to watch out for him. You may
Okay.
want to have him on this show at some
good,
point
yeah.
too, because
And the cruise. Can I have the cruise?
too dangerous.
How much?
Too dangerous. With the cruise, and you referring to Sean Cruise,
That's
the
right, I
director
call
of the
him the
Coca-Cola
Cruise.
Space Science Center, and you at the same time.
I'm telling you,
I think it's
that's-
matter, antimatter.
That's
kind of a-
dynamite, man.
yes,
That's like Starsky and Hutch. It's like Laurel and Hardy. It's like Batman and Robin.
Oh well, I don't know, but
Which
I
of us
don't
looks
know.
better in
Sometimes-
tights? You
I
think
tell you,
he
at the
works
height
out?
of our production schedule
pretty
over
good
here,
at
we will
tights.
put the two of you together and just see
Yeah.
what happens at that point.
I think
So,
Robin had good shoes. They were green.
I'm
with
not
a-
sure the cruise is
Seen
going to
those.
actually show up at your request, but
Yeah.
I may trick him into that.
I'd like, if he could. Boy, we were
Yes.
asking some questions. And Daniel said we were asking what he thought about what bad art. And he gave examples of arts that he didn't like, that did not do something for him. Noise, that sort of thing.
Right.
Now, I think that's different. That's not necessarily bad. That is art that just does not in some way affect you in the way that the artist may or may not have intended to do.
Right. You may have an opinion about it. You don't go out of your way to listen
You
to
wouldn't
it, but
listen,
it's
you know,
not really what you're
yeah.
talking about with bad art.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the beep, you know?
Right,
I
okay.
understand that if, you know, I mean...
But millions are.
Well, I'll tell you this. Whenever I see him, I do scream like a little girl.
Yes.
But I think
Yes.
that's, like I'm just possessed.
I'd love to have that on video at some point.
Yeah,
but
it is.
We don't have it.
But you also, you mentioned the famous crucifix in urine.
Yes, that's right.
And I want to say that's Seurat,
Got a
but I
lot
may
of
be
attention.
wrong.
I think that sounds right, but yeah, it's,
Okay,
that caused a huge reaction.
It did.
You know,
But
negative reaction.
I would say that's not necessarily bad art either. And there's
Okay.
actually, there's a YouTube clip of this. There is a Catholic nun named Sister Wendy who talks about art.
Okay.
And she, as a devout Catholic, discusses this as a work of art. And she will talk about how that in fact, that one could look at this from a religious perspective to say that the message, the impact of the Christian message even shines through and can even make pure what is impure. And there could be a very theological message in that piece of art. You can see she is a subjectivity engaged in the message that this guy, I think it's Seurat, I may be wrong, who she engages and she transformed it into good art.
Okay.
So if it's a rejection, we call that in the biz an aesthetic rejection. You do not engage. You cannot have a dialogue. Okay, so you know, if that noise rock, all that can't necessarily be bad art. Just it's how you engage it.
Right.
I would say that bad art, and the people usually give this as an example, is the painter of light, Thomas Kinkade. Now the man
Thomas Kinkade, you just insulted half of our audience over there who have Kinkade photos and paintings in their.
Well, I think half our audience are in the room right now. So.
Okay, that's maybe a good thing.
I think he's half our audience.
Okay, but Kinkade painted with this light coming through the cottages in the woods.
Lots of cottage,
and
you know.
And those kinds
but
of things.
I'm not saying he's bad art, but he's usually giving the example of bad art.
Yeah, well,
people say this is bad art. This is not good.
Explain this to us. Okay,
the reason why they say it's bad art is because it is art that is meant simply to appease.
Right.
It is some people would say, I'm not saying it, it's a cynical exploitation of certain elements of art that to exploit market potential. That's what some people would say.
This is a commercial venture.
It is.
For him to make money by painting this.
It is the Cheetos of art, the Pringles, the
fast food of art.
There you go. It's Mick art. That's what that is.
Mick art.
Mick art.
But something that doesn't offend, it doesn't inspire.
See, notice
it's in this small range
Seurat,
of it's okay.
The crucifix in urine.
Right.
You have a reaction to that.
Right.
Either that guy's an idiot. What is he thinking? Yeah. You're supposed to be lulled. Kinkade, in some ways, could be considered sort of like Novocaine. So, from a perspective,
kind of nulls your
reaction.
I'm
just saying, could
dulls it in some way.
So, bad art could be art that does not grow the individual. It keeps you kind of stuck. You know, it's not, and you don't even know it. It's like. Not saying that Kinkade is, but some people would say that.
Okay, well, I
you know,
that. Yeah.
And some people would say that it is merely pleasant. It is offensive in the way in which it does not engender any sort of movement or activity from the observer.
So we don't know the motives of that, but it has been very financially successful, Kinkade. Paintings and so forth, and so, but it doesn't add to our.
The man died on a stack of money, literally. He just fell over, and there was a giant stack of money.
All right, so bad art is in this small range, or maybe it's a larger range that really doesn't do much for us. It's neutral. Maybe there's some other other factors, commercial factors, financial factors.
I would look
People
at
are exploiting society and us by putting something out that's not very offensive.
So we mentioned Karl Marx. You know, can we mention Karl Marx or you get in trouble?
Yes. Well, no. I think you already have.
I mentioned Gene Simmons. So
you've already mentioned
Karl
both
Marx
of
was
them,
Jewish too. Oh, I don't know. Maybe he wasn't.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
But Karl Marx. Marx says.
I think so.
that the essence of ideology, be it capitalist ideology, whatever the case may be, but ideology is meant to keep us a cog in the machine. So bad art is at its root ideological, and I think that you can see that. Again, I'm sounding like I'm picking on certain things.
No,
but some there are Christianized versions of certain things, like Christian movies, for instance.
Right.
I don't know if you've seen a few, but they're often horrible.
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, most of them are. Yes.
They're really bad. And I think that whereas Surratt actually has a message that can be seen as Christian, but you have to work at it.
Right.
What was that Firehouse? What was the one about where the guy from Kirk Cameron, that guy who, the Crocoduck guy? What's he was in that? You guys watch that Firehose? You watch that now? You guys don't watch a lot of Christian movies?
No, I don't think
They're
we
going
have.
to hell. Probably not. But I don't know.
Thank you for mentioning, but go ahead. Yeah.
But you'll notice that it is art.
There's also a Christian, I don't know why I'm saying this, but the Christian dating service that's out
There are.
has been in the news lately about someone exploiting that and presenting themselves in a very different way other than the reality of it.
Talking about me?
I don't know if that was you or
Let's just say,
a lot of those things are coming commercial, and I think that, yes, they're becoming kind of commercialized in some way and kind of in that.
It's ideological. It is art. It's a pamphlet masquerading as art. As I was walking to the studio today, there's a guy with a lunchbox that says Jesus saves, and he's handing out pamphlets. Now he's not pretending to be art. He has a message that he wants to be able to give you.
Right.
There is no conflict inherent in that message. There's no attempt at being able to weave parts of reality and fantasy into that. There's no attempt at sublimation. What I think a lot of Christianized art, it fails because it's in the old days you could qualify art. Art has two major components: form and content. So what's the difference between a stop sign and then a painting in which you are trying to show the act of stopping? A stop sign is supposed to be all content, right?
Right.
It's supposed to convey a message.
Sure.
But art is more form than content, because you are playing with the idea of stopping in such a way as you generate an event that allows another subjectivity to engage in said event. When you see a stop sign, you're supposed to instantly, it's there.
Yeah, you know it.
A lot of Christianized art is like a stop sign. Mm-hmm. And as a result, I think it ends up dishonoring its own message because of that, I would say.
Okay. All right.
That's me.
All right.
Though I am going to check out this Christian dating service.
Yes, I'm curious about that. All right, so this bad art notion, how do we recognize it? Is there a prescription for this? Is there some way that we can, that we just, as we begin to engage in art, there's a big art festival that's going on now. I'm curious about that. How do we know bad art? What's the signs that we need to be aware of? I guess we need to know the background, whether it's form and function and so forth, but what would you say?
If we can take it back to the parallel between psychology, particularly psychotherapy, clinical work, and art and the aesthetic experience. Somebody comes into my office and they say to me, I've been taking a cheese grater to my toes,
right?
And I'm now down to like 2.
Yes.
I want to stop.
Yes.
They have a symptom and they're aware of it.
Okay.
But if someone in passing is talking to me and I say, hey, I noticed your shoe size keeps shrinking after, we're at our 6th session. And he said, oh, yeah, cheese grated my toes. That is a symptom that is not, it is not ego dystonic. They are trapped in something that they are unable to really see at this point as a problem. And part of my role as a therapist is to maybe able to get them, if they choose to cheese grate their feet, okay. I think that's
what he's saying, yeah.
But there's the possibility that they are engaged, in fact, in this instance, they may be cheese grating their toes because of their loneliness, because of underlying depression. And the act of cheese grating their toes is keeping them from dealing from the real issue at hand and growing. They are literally, they're stuck in a symptom of toe cheese grating.
Okay.
So, one of the ways...
working on that example. I think I'm trying to just reinterpret that in some ways, but and maybe the viewers can help us with that too.
Here's what you do.
All right.
You may not realize you are engaged in bad art. You may not realize that you were surrounded by bad art. The first step is to simply ask the question, why am I doing this? What purpose does it serve? Simply ask yourself, what itch does it scratch?
Right.
And if it's regression in the service, if it's like an ice cream cone, no big deal. But if the art you engage doesn't, if you don't at least have some room on your plate for some broccoli, some room on your plate for something that,
Right.
then I might say that the bad art is keeping you from being able to engage with the world and yourself in such a way that you might grow and in turn might grow the world. You are limiting your capacity.
You're limiting, yeah. Yes.
So the question is, how do you know? You should ask yourself, because good people can get a Jackson Pollock painting and print and put it on their wall, and they can use it like bad art. Thomas Kincaid, even if you don't like it, you can engage with it in such a way, just like Sister Wendy did with the crucifix and urine. You can make it a point to engage with the world in such a way as to engender a good art, a good aesthetic experience.
Okay. All right. So we need to ask ourselves these questions around how we interpret these. All right. And in terms of functioning as well, how is it affecting us, and what does it do for us, and why are we interested, and why do we have that collection of
and sort of a closing thought maybe to think about is who do you think would look better in tights, me or Sean Cruising?
That's
the question.
That's a interesting question, but we're going to close on that note, because today we've been talking about bad art and its effect on us, and that
could have an effect on you.
Yes, that would definitely have
by the way,
an effect.
the Cruise. I call him the Cruise.
So his new name is the Cruise.
The Cruise.
Does he know? Is he aware of that?
He does not know that.
He's not aware of that. When he sees this, he will be, and I will not be between the two of you when things happen. All right, we're going to pull that show together, Sean Cruise and Dr. Dan Rose.
I think we should review movies.
Yes.
It should be an art, a show about art. Me and Nick. I wonder what kind of music does he like?
I'd have to let him answer that question.
Really? Because I'm thinking it's like...
He's very much into astronomy and space science. I would say that it's...
there's a thing called space rock.
Space rock.
Hawkwind? You like Hawkwind?
That probably would be.
They're called
probably
space
be his
rock.
choice. All right, thank you so much, guys, for watching this show. This is Dr. Dan Rose over here. He's the director of the counseling center. You got me. I almost put you two together anyway in my mind. I was trying to.
You almost cruised me. You almost got me. You cruised me.
I have to separate this out. This is Dan Rose, the director of the counseling center here at Columbus State University. You're watching Columbus State Television, and we appreciate you tuning in. We want you to watch every week. This is Got Therapy with Dr. Dan Rose, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Dan.